Hello and welcome back to We Talk Talent, our highly popular interview series where we uncover stories, strategies, and solutions driving the future of talent, HR innovations, and leadership. I'm Abhik Roy, Associate Content and Community from ETHRWorld, and it's my pleasure to introduce the guest of our today's episode, Alind Sharma, CHRO from Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. Hi, Alind. Welcome to We Talk Talent. We're so happy to have you here.
Hi, Big. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Alan, I'll start with my first question. Lots of
Mhm.
changes are happening in the workplace. There's technology, there's the multi-gen workforce and the evolving expectations. There's also the, new working models. Um, Among all the changes that are happening in the workplace, in the pharma sector, from your experience, what are the most significant workforce trends, that are making, quite a strong impact?
Look, it's a good question in the sense that this is something that's been bothering us over a period of time, and not just me. I'm saying the entire community of human resource professionals. I think the way the world has moved today is, the workforce is multi-generational. I think that's one of the more important things that we grapple with, and I'm guessing this is not just pharma; it's probably across the board, right? And different strokes of different folks, kind of a scenario always works. But if you look at the younger workforce that coming through today, I think the engagement model is shifting. The entire thought process of engaging either through opportunity or through money or roles or positions is important, don't get me wrong. But I think more and more the question of how do we engage people through a sense of purpose is coming through. And you'll see that a lot with the younger generations. And this engagement also, the spans are coming down, right? So gone are the years where long service awards used to be 10 years, right? Now long service awards are 5 years, some places 3 years, and soon it will probably be a year. Okay. And people are not that bothered about, multiple roles being visible on their CV. And how do we get comfortable with that? And, that kind of goes hand in hand with the entire engagement point. Um, to me, the other thing that's happening is the need for people to be comfortable with technology and the tools of using technology, right? And I'm not even going the AI ML route. I think that's a lot has been said there. I think I'm talking about basics of, digitization, basics of understanding automation, using data for decision making. The third, when I talk specific to pharmaceuticals, I think it's the understanding of specific technology, specific scientific skills, right? Because the plain old vanilla world of generics itself is now getting broken up into complex generics, into injectables. So the ability to understand the IP and the regulatory space, the formulations development, analytical skills for method validation, and I could go on and on. But the point I'm making here is, the specific scientific requirement. And the last thing I would say is the understanding of the end-to-end value chain, right? Because look, you're using technology and digitization, whether it's in discovery research or in manufacturing or even in field force, capability enhancements. So how do we understand the applicability from one end to the other? I think that kind of brings it together. Right? So broadly, I would see that these are the three or four, trends that are, kind of coming through right now.
That was a very insightful response. You touched upon scientific skills. You're talking about technology, and and that leads to my next question. Pharma sector is going through a lot of innovation right now. From progressive therapies, to cutting edge drug developments. Lot is happening, which demands that employees continuously learn and they continuously adapt. There has to be that culture of learning, innovation, and agility. So at Glenmark, how are you creating that culture, and what impact have you seen so far?
Look, I think one of the realizations that at least we've come to is that a lot of your learning has to be driven from within. The era of outsourcing your learning or sending people off to training programs or taking canned programs and, kind of putting them into your workforce is gone. Like it's not just going, it's gone. So there is a lot of skill sets that you need to build from within, right? And I think a lot of it will depend on the culture of learning, as you called out, right? And for us, one of the things that we call out very clearly is that, if you really need to grow, then you need to grow through learning. It's enshrined even in our values, right? So if you look at the Glenmark values, it's very three simple words. It's achievement, respect, and knowledge, right? So for us, that is a very basic fundamental for us. And way back about 20 years ago, we started the Glenmark Centre of Learning, or GCL as we all popularly refer to it. And Glenmark Digital is a subset of GCL. So GCL caters to, a very wide gamut of, learning interventions, whether it's on the leadership front, where we have programs that are dependent on the level, whether it is specific programs to create, let's say, for example, talent that could become future plant heads or, sectional heads in R&D or country managers, whether it is about building scientific acumen, so taking, a young individuals straight from campus and helping them build their scientific ability. Um, in addition to what GCL does, there is a lot of effort that we do through learning on the job, right? Because classically it is about skills, about experiences, and about attitude, right? So from an experiential perspective, I think we move people around, we ensure that people, get exposed to multiple elements, and only then can they progress further, right? So progress and learning in our environment go hand in hand. And that's, just some of the very simple stuff that Glenmark is doing today.
Great. And any impact that you would like to share about these, learning initiatives?
So when I look at my critical talent pool, roughly around 96% of that critical talent today is been touched with at least one program, right?
That's
Right. And interestingly enough, when I look at my larger population and I'm looking at it from a pull factor perspective, roughly around 68% of my population today is, opting for a program on the Glenmark Centre of Learning, right? So this is even without managers nominating people or they going through a program that is specific to their level or their, let's say, their station in life. These are individuals reaching out to kind of, create learning for themselves. Like learning on the go is a fairly common thing with us, and it's been there for more than a decade, right? It's become a bit of a buzzword, but it's fairly common for us, right? So even a medical rep, if he's waiting outside a doctor's chamber, has access to a lot of information that he or she can go through and kind of prepare themselves for that little conversation with the doctors. So yeah, there could be more, but I thought these could be an interesting set to share with you.
That's wonderful. And in your first response, you mentioned like engagement as one of the workforce trend, like how the new generation of workforce, they are not that much interested in job tenure as compared to purpose and all. So I think my next question is touching on this topic. Voluntary attrition, is one of the common challenges that pharma sector deals with. So, I want to know what strategies, according to you, are working best when it comes to, effectively engaging and retaining the top talent.
And you're right, I think attrition is a significant issue that a lot of organizations face. It obviously varies by industry, but the pharma industry is no stranger to that. Um, I think we need to look at it in some of the building blocks of attrition, right? Are you hiring the right people? Are you onboarding them correctly? Are you having managers who can engage high caliber talent when you bring them in? Are you managing the life cycle of the individual? And that engagement through purpose is a part and parcel of it, right? So hiring the right people for the right role at the right time to me is an important part of, stopping attrition. Right? So whether it's in our field or in our plants or wherever, we have a very clear profile of what is it that we are looking for, right? And we don't try and compromise, on making changes to that profile. So we ensure that we bring the right set of, individuals for us. Our global onboarding programs and even local onboarding programs are, very important because there's no point getting good caliber talent and then losing them in the first 6 months because they didn't understand the role or, nobody kind of guided them. And these are very specific to the kind of role the individual does. And we constantly keep, improving this. So for example, I have folks from GCL and some of my team who are working with leaders to actually completely rehaul the way we do onboarding, right? Because it's a continuous process. You can't say, oh, I have this onboarding program and then live with it for 5 years because the world will change in 5 years, right? The third element that I spoke about was, how do we ensure that our first line and first time managers are actually well trained to ensure that they're able to take care of their teams. So we have some very specific programs, just for ensuring that both first-time managers and first-line managers receive the kind of attention and training that they are required for, right? And then, engaging through recognition, engaging through the broader sense of purpose, right, that a Glenmark provides, ensuring that we are able to manage their life cycle, whether it be life cycle events or like we have a Wellness 360 program that talks about all kinds of wellness, not just, physical, but mental, financial, social, right? So we take pride in ensuring that our people have, access to, getting an approach on any kind of wellness that they have. One of the advantages of being in a Glenmark environment is the global exposure that people get. Right? So more than a sense of purpose, it's the quality of experience that people are able to get. And then last but not the least, we have very strong recognition programs at every level. So I think what we are talking about here from an engagement or let's say reduction of attrition perspective is a holistic approach towards all elements of engaging. Because if you are able to do a good job of engaging, your attrition will take care of itself.
Great. My next question is on, leadership. I think that's very one other important aspect of, talent management, creating strong leaders. That's the, I think, very key foundation of any, resilient enterprise. So, any strategies or any programs you would like to share on, leadership development that's happening at Glenmark and any difference they have made so far?
So you see, when you look at leadership, leadership has many phases to it, right? So classically, when somebody becomes a leader or a people manager for the first time, right, they are mostly in an instruction mode, right? Do this, do that, don't do this kind of a thing, right? As they move ahead in their, let's say, leadership life cycle, right, they move from that instruction mode to an influencing mode, right, where they get work done for their teams through their peers or sometimes even through other people, right? And then ultimately, at a very senior leadership, you have to move into a scenario where you're able to inspire people, right? So it's my so-called 3I model, right? But the way Glenmark approaches leadership is through ensuring that we are able to address at each of these levels, right? So at a very basic level, we have a program called Pearl that deals with your initial managers, the young leaders, right? Then as they progress, the next level program is called Iris, which is my middle management leaders because their needs are a little different. Then there is a program called Gold that deals with my general managers, my vice presidents. And then at the senior most levels, which is, the MD minus one, MD minus two kind of levels, we have a program called Glen Eagles, right? So whilst the philosophy for each of these programs is similar, right? The way they approach and the kind of people that they deal with are extremely different. And because we've been able to run these over a period of time, you can start seeing a consistency of leadership approach developing in the organization. So when you talk about what's the biggest takeaway, I think that ability of an individual to be aware at what level, how they are expected to behave from a leadership perspective, and that consistency of approach to me is the single largest takeaway for us.
So, my last question for you, Alind, is, on compliance. It's a big topic in pharma. It's non-negotiable. And right now, it's only evolving. So it's only gonna get, tougher, to be compliant. I want to know, as an HR leader, what would you recommend to the, the HR fraternity, the best practices, for ensuring that compliance is, internalized, in the culture, it's internalized by the employees and not just seen as, just a, formal training requirement.
One of the things we must recognize, especially from a culture perspective, that culture is ultimately nothing but shared behavior, right? And that becomes very true when you deal with topics like compliance. Because if you do not, behave in a compliant manner, you cannot expect another person to be doing so, right? So for me, the tenor and tone of compliance starts at the top. Right? It's let's say incorrect in my mind to ask an entry level employee to say, okay, you have to follow XYZ, sets of rules when the top guys are not doing it. Right. So to me, my message would be ensure that that shared behavior, that demonstration of a compliant approach is clear. The second is make compliance simple and easy for people to understand. Right. Because the moment you start crouching it in legal language or in, putting a lot of SOPs and processes around it, it's going to be rate limiting. So ensure that people appreciate and understand, and most importantly, they understand what's the business aspect of the compliance. Because there's no point in saying adhere to this without the person understanding why am I doing what am I doing. You might make it simple for someone to understand, but if he or she does not appreciate the why, then it's really not going to be sustainable. And in compliance or most other related issues, I think sustainability and consistency are two very, very important elements. I'd rather do a small, simple thing very well as opposed to trying to do 40 things, not so well. So my three messages are exactly this.
Very insightful. Thank you so much, Alind, for joining We Talk Talent. I learned a lot. The conversation was full of valuable key takeaways for my viewers. Thank you so much for that.